The morning Marcus brought the dog home, it was raining so hard the gutters had just given up being gutters. They were rivers now. Small ones, furious ones, and none of that mattered to Marcus, not one bit. He found the puppy under a dumpster on Elm Street. Small, absolutely ridiculous, with ears that were way too big for his head, and paws that were way too big for his body, and eyes, the exact shade of warm honey, dog inside his jacket, and ran. Jumping the ones he didn't need to jump, because when you are 9 years old and you have just found something that needs you, the rain doesn't really matter. Nothing does. Squelching. With a small wriggling lump under his jacket that had just pushed its nose out through his collar and was looking at its new world for the very first time. Raining, and he was alone. As if those three facts were the only facts that could ever matter. Because he was either very smart or very lucky. Wagged his tail exactly once. Slowly, hopefully, she sighed. The sigh of a woman who had already lost. Rain-soaked puppy under a dumpster. That dog had carried himself like someone who expected to be treated well. He slept in Marcus's bed that night, and every night after. Driveway. And every single morning without fail, he sat there and he watched until the school bus disappeared around the corner. Not because anyone told him to, because there was nowhere else he could imagine being. Those honey-colored eyes fixed on the corner where the bus had gone, and waited. With the absolute, unshakable patience of someone who has never once in his entire life doubted the return, before Duke's whole body was vibrating with joy. All four paws off the ground, tail going so fast it was practically a propeller. Those honey eyes saying the same thing they said every single day. You came back. You always come back. I knew you would. I always know. And didn't say anything. The right thing to do was sit right beside him and not say anything either. Some love doesn't need words. Some love just needs to show up. Whole warm weight of their being. That Marcus was his person. That this house was his home. That as long as Marcus came back through that door every evening, the world was in its right order. Ridiculous dog. Still too much ear. Still those honey eyes. Still that same slow, deliberate wag he saved for the moments that mattered most. He did not know. Could not know. That some doors, once closed, do not open again. And a strange month for a world to fall apart. But grief has never been particular about timing. That mattered, and none of the ways that would later seem important. He had toast for breakfast. He scratched Duke behind the left ear. Always the left. Duke was particular about this. While I'm gone. Duke wagged once, slowly, deliberately, turned back once, and gave a small wave. Then the bus came. The door closed, with that mechanical sigh that bus doors make everywhere. And Duke sat down to wait. Doubt in the world that the person he was waiting for would come back through that door. He always came back. He always did. Heard it pull up. He did not turn around. He was facing the corner where the school bus would come from. He was not finished waiting yet. Heard from a human before. Not crying exactly, something below crying, something more fundamental than that. The kind of sound that raises the hair along a dog's spine and tells every animal instinct he has that something has broken that cannot be fixed. Heard from a human before. Not crying exactly, something below crying, something more fundamental than that. The kind of sound that raises the hair along a dog's spine and tells every animal instinct he has that something has broken that cannot be fixed. Her arm around him, and they stayed that way as the stars came out above the oak tree. One by one, above Elm Street. Two beings who had lost the same person leaning against each other in the dark. He's not coming home. Duke heard the words. He had no way to keep them. Then language, in the place where love lives before it learns to explain itself. He knew something was wrong. He did not know how permanent wrong could be. The bus came, the bus left. Marcus was not on it. Duke waited anyway. The bus left. Marcus was not on it. Duke waited anyway. Had no word for what he was living, is that it does not get smaller with time. It simply becomes the shape of your days, beside the bed, where the smell of the boy still lived in the fibers of the fabric, even as it slowly, month by month, faded. Duke pressed his nose into the floor to find it, facing the corner. Every morning, the bus came. Every morning, Marcus was not on it. And every morning, Duke waited anyway, because waiting was the only language he had for love. Break their hearts, and also make them feel helpless. That poor dog. Somebody ought to do something. He doesn't know that boy is gone. He knows. Dogs always know. He just doesn't believe it. Nobody had an answer for that. Break their hearts, and also make them feel helpless. That poor dog. Somebody ought to do something. He doesn't know that boy is gone. He knows. Dogs always know. He just doesn't believe it. Nobody had an answer for that. People cry in 14 different countries. Duke did not know he was famous. He was simply a dog at the end of a driveway, waiting for a boy who had said, "See you tonight," and had not yet come home. Resident of a moment that had ended, waiting for it to begin again. Year 5. Year 6. His muzzle went gray. His honey eyes dimmed a little at the edges, the way photographs do when they've been loved too long. He moved more slowly now, but he moved every morning without fail. And every October, its leaves drifted down around him, gold and amber and rust, and settled on his gray-white back. He never shook them off. He was too busy watching the corner to care about leaves right across the street. And she decided, within approximately 45 seconds of seeing him, that Duke was the saddest and most beautiful thing she had ever seen in her entire 8-year-old life. At things that adults have already decided not to look at too long. Completely, without blinking, without apology, just looking. Owner, sweetheart, a boy who passed away a long time ago. The dog doesn't know he's gone. He just keeps waiting. Lily thought about this for a moment. He does know. He just loves him. Her mother didn't have an answer for that because it was too true to argue with. She didn't try to move him. She didn't try to make him into a different kind of story. She just sat down beside him, cross-legged on the cold concrete, and waited alongside him. Because if he was going to wait, she was going to wait too. Of toast, she split with him without thinking, the way you share food with someone you've known forever. Duke took it from her fingers with extraordinary gentleness. He always did everything with extraordinary gentleness when it came to things that mattered. Children close, as if they recognize in each other something that has not yet been worn away by the particular grinding machinery of the years in between, something still open, still willing. Winters that came sideways and meant business. Through summer mornings when the concrete was already warm at 7 a.m., she grew 2 inches, lost 2 baby teeth, read 47 books, and she was there. Every single morning, she was there. And then, I'm not going anywhere either, just so you know. It was the most important promise she had ever made. She was 8 years old, and she kept it, absolutely. At the end of the driveway, Lily was already sitting there waiting for him. Not the answer he had been waiting for, but something real, something warm, something that showed up. Had become a late riser in his old age, his body requiring more convincing than it once did to begin the business of a day. But that morning, he was up before the light. standing at the back door, nosing it open, stepping out into the cold blue dark of an early November morning. For 2 years now, those old joints doing their work carefully and at cost. But they had never stopped him from making this walk. He went to his spot at the end of the driveway. He lowered himself down with the careful dignity of someone who has earned their rest, but is not quite ready for it yet. He faced the corner. He waited. Something had woken her in the night, and she had not been able to get back to sleep. She had stood at her window for a long time, watching the empty street before she understood what she was looking for. For a long time. She just sat down beside him, the way she always sat beside him, cross-legged, close, present. And she said the only thing that needed to be said. "I'm here, Duke. I'm right here." Dimmer than they once were, but still warm, still carrying whatever it is that lives in a dog's eyes when they look at the person they have chosen. She stroked his head and didn't speak. There was nothing left to say that his eyes weren't already saying. The end of the street. The kind of sunrise that looks like something is being forgiven. Lily sat with the warmth of it falling on her face and didn't move. She held Duke the way you hold something, his tail moved. Once. Slowly. The way it always had. The wag he saved for what mattered most. And then was still. And in the end, as in the beginning, he was not alone. Think about this. She thought about a boy she had never met, whose dog had loved him for 10 years without a single day of doubt. She thought about what it meant to love something that much. She thought it must have been extraordinary. Technically city property and therefore technically not allowed. But the city inspector who came to investigate had a Labrador at home named Biscuit, and he looked at the small wooden marker and the flowers that had appeared overnight from people who had never met the dog, and he wrote in his report that he had found no violation. People came to see it. This was strange, and also not strange at all. Holding a ridiculous puppy with ears too big for his head and paws too big for his body, both of them soaking wet from the rain, both of them absolutely grinning. Collar, gently worn. A note that said, "My dog waited for me at the window every day for 13 years. I never deserved it. None of us do. That's the whole point." Something about 10 years of love makes people need to stand near where it lived. Fifth. She had not meant to. The cat had simply been there one morning. Thin and orange, and thoroughly unimpressed with her. She'd given it the corner of her sandwich. It ate with the precise dignity of someone accepting charity without quite admitting to needing it. She went back the next day with actual cat food. Someone has to. That was it. That was the whole answer. Duke had left her that. She carried it like it was the most natural thing in the world, because to her, it was. Dog at the end of a driveway. What he left behind was not a monument, not a lesson written in neat handwriting. What he left behind was a 10-year-old girl who had learned from watching a dog be faithful that showing up was not a small thing, that staying was not a small thing, that love practiced daily, without reward, without certainty, was not a small thing. It was, in fact, the whole thing. Known her at 8 years old, sitting cross-legged on cold concrete beside an old gray dog who was waiting for someone who would never come. She kept a photograph on her desk, not of Duke, though she had one of those too, of the marker under the oak tree. Impossible cases. The grief that comes with loving creatures whose lives are so much shorter than your own. She told them about a boy named Marcus and a dog named Duke and a driveway on Elm Street and 10 years of a love so complete it had outlasted the very thing that caused it. That Duke always believed he would. And through, and perhaps into, the small wooden marker beneath it. The way living things tend to grow around the things they love. Slow and without hurry. Like something that has all the time in the world. Like something that knows with absolute certainty that it will not be waiting alone.